Calling and bululuku. With whatever we do. Jion safu no la. Whatever we do. Hale yi demu school. Nyepamne ne kudlukula. Nyepangi ragala gena. Nyepamne ne kudlukula. Ibuloke no moto ni beti sola. Ibuloke dato ni betoto.
Mingi Congo.
Lami te jibe norin te nyame lamin.
Kabona wulokono.
Wulokono nyinte mo lamin.
Pabilenki.
Muna ngata afongole.
Haina.
Ngata.
Le karamol soron lamin adara lo nyino la aman tara fena sokon ala munekela
Ama lamin ite foyde malon ko lesinol be ke kar radio to.
Nga fine.
e ko nyadi mo lamin
Nga fine.
ya muna fonye
Bir kabin bina kan ntambita nteri maning fatu.
Ha.
Ntambita la sukala ala dinngol bebe siri be la moyka.
faru danso am fana tambira jere ni subala ngaje diningol be jet talanta nen kili warol e be serin jelet
Sa lamin fadante ku kili wo ke no la ba lamin bita ka wulo ko no nyinta mo alamin.
aman dara fenela
Ite ko ni man si yakari lesinol la moy radio to balon na.
muneka ke afonye ba nyara ni alon
Telentel jikot.
afonye ba munebe ke
Ite balontel be jikritel. Ni man karambe ku kele. Yaje nata karana mbasa malaya ay tarije.
par nyarande kombo courant ho findira kombo ide na raje den sonka bay ko lamin manya tala wulo ko karamol be so afonye membe
ko to wole nati bawo ngalle ni lamin kuntala kombo courant o ka fa me kombo courant asototal wala kinay ko e sisu kono bari ni ko e sisu kono be karangol dike la radio lin telel to hani tele masoto to nyaay man tele soto la bongo bar radio be bulen koto batiri sanga ay si ay alamo
sa do kala
ko ta o bulaji
ado kala nyaadi
kamun ke nyaadi
radio abe wala moy la be mona falaje
ibe la karandirol kala jele
ti talle be radio ko men ka karamo
il est subjecteur baby jele i baby jele
wala nanga coco moy fa dan so wolya ngombe tambi kana ngadi ningol de be ikadum bungo de ko kala marmo
a sototal de
lamin mala be kara wala de
Bari laftalal ideal on in the every year second wala fourth.
muna ni ko di ha ko ndego folle sinila mba ndele sinilo ne ba
mbasa mba foke en koto wole fango yen wulindi yalo famo keta bat ñu fana bulata ko ko me yen nati jambi lamin nyanta karana ndel beji ko be nyine ka ya bulay kara wulo kana ta kilar ya bambalo yo be bulaje en koto dinni ngoy si ayala le sino la moy radio
wara ka munda kara mo man soro lamin nyanda kara si so na regular
sila le ayala le sino
ndale ko korna ko smalo
kilar ya
be ngala ko momo say mi do ni ko no kera
Mengi bruise
ndale ko la da ba rosa no radio ba no bari woro radio ni abe jele ba ngam do man dembe buljan dala nyara nyar wo ko fendi mo la lamin tayra ba rosa
bara te ku folo ajibe nori nya labi tamete ku
teku
bari ko do famo ke
ja image nani nyambol si zol le keje kisigi man si zol no le kafun ka nyoma bari nyambu kino ni manya na kafindi ni nambe ko zol laga
ngalle limbeta de be nyambo do dilanna
din fennat jara nata
bari famo ke da
ngata bungono tammi bungono nyara ngando ko fele ko ke baru nganda ni pelo la dija
iyo awa
la bungono bismillah bisu diara
Pendulala. Ye fungo tanka sina dolu tanka. Korota. Korota.
Hello, viewers and listeners. My name is Mustafa Dauda. I'll be taking you the economics class, lesson 3. And that will be on price mechanism. That is demand and supply. Of course, we should know that demand and supply is a formidable topic in economics, in the sense that there are a lot of questions on this topic. Now, what is price mechanism? It is a way of allocating scarce resources based on the forces of demand and supply. So we'll be looking at each of these terms in detail. We'll first look at demand. And then later, we'll look at supply. But first, let's introduce the objective of the lesson. We'll be looking at the definition of demand, the law of demand. We'll also look at the demand schedule and demand curve. We'll further go to the factors affecting demand, changes in demand, and changes in quantity demanded. We'll further look at the types of demand and some past exam questions. So let's start with price. Of course, we know price in economics is the exchange value of goods and services. Now, for a good or service to have price, it must possess utility. The good must be scarce or limited in supply, and it must be marketable, capable of being exchanged. The concept of demand. What is demand? We define demand as the desire for goods or services backed by the ability and willingness to pay for them at a given price over a period of time. Yes, we'll look at certain key terms in this definition. Desire for goods and services. Desire for goods and services. Then, another key aspect of this definition is the ability and willingness to pay. Then we also look at price and time. So basically, the first aspect to look at in this definition is the desire for goods and services. We basically want to distinguish between demand and want. A want is a mere wish, but when we say you demand a commodity, you actually desire a quantity. Yes, desire for a quantity of goods and services. So that makes the first aspect of the definition. Then you must have the willingness and the ability, the money to actually pay for these goods. You must be able to pay the price and time. We most times hear people say, if wishes were horses, beggars will ride. You may wish to have a commodity, but you don't have the money to buy it. So that's a mere want. It's a mere desire. But when it is backed by the ability and willingness to pay the price, and at a particular time period, then it becomes demand. So for demand to be effective, another term we need to look at, effective demand, the person must have the ability to pay the price and at a particular point in time. So desire, ability, willingness to pay the price, these qualities will differentiate demand from wants. And as we said, wants are mere human desires. Yes, but when it is backed by the willingness and ability to pay, then it becomes effective demand. Now, what does the law of demand state? That if all factors remain unchanged, the higher the price, the lower the quantity demanded, and the lower the price, the higher the quantity demanded. Now, why are we holding some factors unchanged? Well, we're dealing with human behavior. You may have money, but maybe the product is not your choice, is not in fashion. So for the law of demand to work, we must hold certain variables constant. That yes, the person or the consumer has money, the good is his desire, he is willing to pay the price. then the law of demand will work. Otherwise, there may be problem with the law. You may want a product, but if you don't have income, the law will not operate. So that is why we assume that even the person has income, the good is his taste. So that is what that all factors remaining unchanged mean there. It's very important in the law of demand. Now, what the law is saying is that price and quantity demanded have a negative relationship. What that means is that as price rises, what happens to quantity demanded? It falls. So clearly, if price is positive, demand is what? Negative. Similarly, if price falls, that is, price is negative, quantity demanded will what? Will rise. So therefore, the relationship becomes negative. Of course, plus times minus is minus, minus times plus gives you still minus. So the relationship between quantity demanded and the price is negative. Now, what do we mean by the demand schedule? Of course, a schedule is a table. So if we have a table that shows the quantities demanded at various prices, then we call it a demand schedule. We'll look at an example of an individual demand schedule. There are basically two types of demand schedule. The individual demand schedule for a single consumer, and the market demand schedule, which is an aggregate of all the individual demand schedules. That is an example of an individual demand schedule for Modu. We've seen the price per loaf of bread in dollars and the quantity demanded by Modu. You clearly see a trend that at $7, Modu is buying less, coming down to $3 as the price falls, Modu buys what? More. Of course, in everyday life, when will you buy as a consumer? When will you buy more? It is only when the price what? Is low, or when the price falls. So the individual demand schedule, as I indicated, is for a single individual. And if we should represent that on a diagram, you clearly see that of Modu's individual demand curve. So that brings us to the demand curve, which is a diagram that shows the quantities demanded at various prices. So therefore, the demand curve is a graphical representation of the individual demand schedule. If we look at that, you see that Modu's demand curve will be like this. At $1, he's buying 100. Here represents the price. All diagrams must be properly labeled. And here represents the quantities demanded. Of course, the coordinate here becomes 0. And as the price increases to 2, you see that Modu now reduces the quantity he'll buy. He'll buy 80. If the price increases to 3, his quantity falls to what? To 60. As his price increases to 4, Modu will buy 40. And as the price further increases to 5, Modu buys 20. So if you connect all these points, you will have the demand curve. Now this is just a graphical representation of Modu's demand curve. But then let's briefly talk about the demand curve. As you can see, the shape of the demand curve, it is concave. That is, what you see is a shape like this. You have the price in dollars, and you have the quantity demanded. Now what happens here is that this shape clearly shows that the demand curve is concave. You may be asked in an exam to explain the shape of the demand curve. Now, why do we say it is concave? The reason is that the price and the quantity demanded move in opposite what? Direction. I've already explained that. As price rises, demand will fall. And as price falls, people buy more, demand increases. So therefore, because of that negative relationship between price and quantity demanded, we'll say that the demand curve has a negative slope. It has a negative slope. Okay, we'll make progress to the market demand schedule. If you can remember, I told you that the demand schedule, there are two types: the individual demand schedule and the market demand schedule. The market demand schedule is also called the aggregate demand schedule. It is a schedule for all the consumers of a particular commodity in the market. In other words, the market demand schedule is a combination of all the individual demand schedules of particular goods in a market. Let's look at the table. We have three individual consumers: Modu, Fatu, Rohi, and Sajo. At $5 per loaf, Modu buys 2, Fatu buys 4, Rohi buys 6, and Sajo buys 8. Now, what will be the total market demand at the price of 5? If you add across 2 plus 4 plus 6 plus 8, you have 20. At the price of 4, what will be the market demand? Well, Modu buys 7, Fatu buys 9, Rohi buys 10, and Sajo buys 14. So if you add across at the price of 4, you have a market demand of 40. Coming down to the price of 1, Modu buys 18, Fatu buys 20, Rohi buys 32, and Sajo buys 30. Equally, you add across, you have 100. So clearly that indicates how we arrive at the market demand, as you see in the schedule. If you look at the curve too, the diagram, it will indicate exactly the market demand schedule. So the market demand curve also represents the market demand schedule, a diagram that shows the quantities demanded at various prices. Here is a classwork, an example for you to look at. It is a mathematical illustration of the demand curve. Given the function QD as equals to 40 minus 3P, where QD is quantity demanded and P is price, calculate the quantity demanded when price is $2, $3, and $5. A simple equation that I'm sure even the greatest students can handle. All you do is to substitute P for the price. So if we are to look at the solution, that's the solution, you see. So at the price of $2, substituting P for the price, you have 40 minus 3 into 2. So that's 40 minus 3 times 2, which gives you 6, and that gives you 34. So that's the first quantity demanded at the price of 2. Now, what will be the quantity demanded at the price of 3? Equally, you substitute 3 for P. So if you have 40 minus 3 into 3, that's 40 minus 9, that's 3 times 3, it gives you 31. Equally, at $4, you have 40 minus 3 into 4, that's 40 minus 3 times 4, which is 12, which is 28. And the quantity demanded at the price of 5 will give you 25 as indicated on the board. Any questions? Well, I guess you should be able to understand what is being explained. Now we are moving on. We're going to look at the factors affecting demand. Determinants of demand, as it is also known, or factors influencing demand. Many factors affect demand. The first one is the price of the good. Price of the good or commodity. Now, how would you explain this point? Price of the good basically will indicate the law of demand. When the price is low, people buy more. And when the price is high, people buy what? Less. We also talk about price of other goods. Price of related goods. Now, these related goods can either be substitute goods. They can either be substitutes or they can be complementary goods. Now, what do we mean by substitute goods? Substitute goods are alternative goods. Substitute goods are alternative goods. That is, we use one in the absence of the other. They serve the same purpose. They serve the same purpose. Well, common examples that most people will give is what? You either drink tea, and if tea is not available, you may use what? Coffee. Or if you cannot afford a taxi, you may use the van to reach your destination. These are all substitutes. They satisfy the same purpose. So therefore, we can say the alternative what? Goods. Imagine the price of tea rises. What do you think will happen to the demand for coffee? It will increase. Because those who cannot afford to buy the tea will now buy what? Coffee. If the taxi fare goes up and that of the van remains low, many people will travel by the bus or the van since the taxi has become expensive. You see, so clearly, when the price of one rises, the demand for the other will increase. So therefore, the relationship is actually positive. The relationship is positive. Now, how about complementary goods? Complementary goods, they have a negative relationship. They are also known as joint goods. Goods that are jointly demanded to satisfy our wants. Goods jointly demanded to satisfy a want. For example, when you buy tea, you buy what? Sugar. If you have a car, you must buy fuel. What do we mean by that? It means that you cannot use a car without fuel, for example. If you want to get a tea, you must buy what? Sugar to satisfy your want. So therefore, if the price of tea rises, the demand for sugar is going to fall because less people buy tea and therefore less people buy sugar. So if this is positive, the price is positive, the demand will be negative. So therefore, it has a negative relationship. As price of cars rise, less people buy cars, and therefore the demand for fuel will what? Will fall. So we see how the price of one good will affect the demand for the other, for substitute goods, and equally for complementary goods, goods that are jointly demanded. Another factor affecting demand is the income of the consumer. Income of consumer. If consumers receive more income, they will decide to buy more goods. Imagine salaries are increased. Of course, the demand for goods will also increase in such economy. But when incomes are low, the demand for goods and services will what? Will fall. We also look at other factors such as population of consumers. Where you have more consumers, people tend to buy more. Yes. If we have 1 million consumers, then of course the demand for a good will certainly increase. But if we have, let's say, 500,000 consumers, the demand will be low. So population is another factor influencing demand. Population. We also talk about advertising. If goods are successfully advertised, the demand will increase. But if it is poorly advertised, people don't like the adverts or they are not seeing it, then the demand will fall. We talk about expectation. Expectation of price changes. Expectation of future price change. Expectation of future price changes. What this means is that if people expect prices to rise in the future, let's say the price of rice is $1,000, and people anticipate that the price will increase to $2,200. Now that the price is low, what will they do? In order not to be affected by the future price increase, buy what? More now at $1,000. How about if they expect that prices will fall in future from 1,000 to 800? Will they buy more now? No, they will wait until the price what? Falls. So expectation of future price change will also affect demand. Then we'll look at the last one, which is weather condition. Some products are seasonal in demand. For example, umbrellas. If it is rainy season, what will happen to the demand for umbrella? It will increase. If it is a dry season, nobody buys the umbrella, maybe only few. If it is summer, people buy ice cream. How about if it is winter, very cold, icy? Nobody will bother to buy ice cream. So these are all seasonal products. So weather affects their demand. These are the factors affecting demand. Now there is an assignment here on the board, as you can see. You are being given the demand function for a particular commodity as QD as equals to 21 minus 3P. And you're expected to use the demand function to complete the table. So you have to do the calculation, substituting each of those prices in the table there at 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and $6. You substitute them into the equation, and you get the quantities demanded at each of those prices. Then when you're done, you have to draw the demand curve to complete that table and outline any three factors affecting demand. This is an assignment that we'll look at when we come for our next lesson. We certainly going to start the fourth lesson. We're going to look at the distinction between a change in quantity demanded and a change in demand. It is a very important concept that confuses a lot of students. A change in demand and a change in quantity demanded. A change in quantity demanded we'll start with. A change in quantity demanded. Here, our emphasis will be on the quantity. Now, what causes the quantity of a product to change is the price of the product. Price, changes in the price is the major factor that causes a change in quantity demanded. In other words, change in quantity demanded means movement from one point to the other on the demand curve due to change in the price of the commodity. So therefore, we're looking at moving from one point to the other on the demand curve. Such a change can either be as a result of a fall in price, and we know that when price falls, people tend to buy more. So it will be an extension in demand. That is, if we have a demand curve like that, that's the quantity and that's the price. So if price falls from P2 down to P1, you realize that we'll be moving from Q1 to Q2. Because price has fallen, quantity demanded will what? Will increase. So movement from point A here to point B is an extension in demand. Extension in demand. And what causes an extension in demand? It is when the price falls. Similarly, if we look at the other diagram, a decrease in quantity demanded occurs as a result of an increase in the price of the same commodity. So that is a contraction in demand, when demand falls as a result of an increase in the price of the commodity. Now, if you look at this diagram again, we are saying that when the price rises from P1 to P2, quantity demanded falls from Q2 to what? Q1. So we are moving from point B to point what? A. So demand is contracting. Contraction in demand as a result of an increase in what? Price. Now let us look at a change in demand. Take note, a change in quantity demanded, as we said, our emphasis is on quantity. And what is the cause? Changes in what? In price. Now we are going to have change in demand. We are not emphasizing here on the quantity. Here we're looking at other factors that may make demand to decrease, even when the price remains to be the same. So the demand curve will have to shift entirely to a new what? Position. And what causes a change in demand? It is changes in other factors affecting demand. Changes in other factors affecting demand, but not the price. But not the price. So here the price will remain constant, as you see on the diagram. At the price of $3, you realize that people increase the quantity they buy from 5 to what? To 10. Now, why may that happen? A couple of factors normally cause an increase in demand. So let's look at some of those factors that will cause increase in demand. The questions normally can be specific. They may want to know what may cause an increase in demand. Take note, it's an increase in demand which is different from increase in quantity demanded. Increase in demand is as a result of Let's say 1, increase in consumers' income. Increase in consumers' income. When their income rises, they tend to buy more. So you see that the demand curve will shift outwards to the right. Then we have increase in population of consumers. Increase in population of consumers. At the existing price, if you have more people buying the product, more consumers buying the good, then the demand will shift outwards. Then we also talk about successful advertising. Successful advertising. If the good is successfully advertised and people like the good, then they will buy more. How about if the product is in taste and it is the fashion of the consumers? Yes, the good is in taste. Yes, the good is in fashion and liked by consumers. Of course, we know that the demand will increase. We can also talk about price of related goods. Let's say substitute goods. If the price of one substitute good rises, if the price of a substitute good rises, the demand for the other what? Will increase. The demand for the other increases. So as you can see, from these points we've given, we've not made mention of the price of the good. The price of the good does not cause an increase in demand. You don't have to mention a fall in price of the good, because we are saying that a change in demand, the price remains what? Constant. It does not change. So price does not cause a change in demand. What does price cause? A change in quantity what? Demanded. But a fall in price does not cause a change in demand, since price remains constant as you see on the diagram. Now let's say there is a specific question that says, what will cause an increase in demand for millet? The question is specific. Your answer also should be what? Specific. That is, increase in the consumer's income, buy more millet, increase in the population of consumers that buy millet, the demand for millet to increase, and so on and what? And so forth. Now, how about a decrease in demand? A decrease in demand is a shift of the demand curve to the left as price remains what? Constant. As you can see, still at the price of $3, demand decreases from 10 to what? To 5. So therefore, what causes a decrease in demand? We have to change the answers. For example, what should happen to consumers' income for demand to decrease? That is, if consumers' income falls or fall in consumers' income. If consumers receive less income, the demand will shift to the left. Equally, if there is a low population or a fall in population, of course, there are few consumers, so the demand will also fall. How about poor advertising? If the good is not properly advertised, then the demand will also what? Fall. So clearly, you've seen that also here, there is nothing like an increase in price of the good. And what we are doing is to teach you how to answer past questions. What may cause a fall in demand for millet? Your answer should be specific to a fall in demand. How about if you're asked what may cause a change in demand for millet? A change, the word there is a change. The change can either be an increase in demand or a decrease in demand. So if you're answering such a question, you must indicate also a change in income. For example, what may cause a change in demand for bicycle? One, you can indicate a change in income. And you explain both sides. That is, the change can either be a fall in demand or an increase in what? Demand. If the income of the consumers are low, they'll buy less bicycles. If the income of the consumer is high, then they may demand what? More bicycles. So once they ask you a change, the question says a change in demand for bicycle, your answer should indicate an increase in income, making them buy more bicycles, and a decrease in income, making them buy less bicycles. Increase in population of people who may want to use bicycle, they'll buy more. A decrease in population, there will be less demand for bicycles. So clearly, I hope the points are well understood in the sense that we've looked at what may cause a change in quantity demanded and a change in demand. It is a common question for most exam papers we've seen in WAS, and these are concepts that confuse students. You must know that a change in quantity demanded is caused only by price. The emphasis there is on the quantity. A change in demand is caused by changes in the other factors affecting demand, but not the price. And there you see that the price remains constant, even from the diagrams you've seen. This indicates a decrease in demand, and this indicates an increase in demand when the demand curve shifts outwards to your right. We'll hang it there today. In our next class, we'll be looking at the types of demand. We also look at their relationship, and we'll look at abnormal demand, and so forth and so forth. Any questions? Don't forget also to look at the assignment given to you. That is this demand function for you to complete the table and draw the curve, and also to state 3 factors affecting demand. Thank you very much, viewers and listeners.
Have your say.
Fellow Gambians, my government has approved a $500 million emergency fund, which the Ministries of Health and Finance will work on for disbursement and use to fight COVID-19 menace.
xaalis bi tege yomb na waaye xam lu jafe mooy séddale bi ni ko séddalee ak ndax danañ ko jox ñi ko yeeyoo wala dinañ ko jox loolu moo jara laajte.
loo xam ne la nit yi tax ñu joxe ko te nit ñi ñoo leen fa teg te xaalis nit yi la comme xaalis population bi la wax dëgg yàlla li gënoon mooy ku nekk a gis sa boppa.
man su ma sañoon daal ñu séddoo ko nu mu waroo buñ si def xaaj loo ñii diw nañ ko si ku nekk war a am nga am ko.
askan bi seen dem ak dikk bu ñu wàññee mu jël ko def ko si loolu noonu participer ko si loolu noonu ba nga xam ne danañ mën a ànd ak moom si wàññi suñu dem ak suñu dikk.
génne leen xaalis bi nañ ko génnee ñu def ko ñu defar suñu réew mi defar réew nag da nga koy commencé njàng mu baax nit ñi di faju feebar di faju tan feebar di faju dafa xemul kombo loolu affaire bi du kombo rek nañ génne ci àll bi yëpp ñu defar fa hôpital li war man mi